Hello there, good day folks. Well, I recently bought an extra 100 watt solar panel so I could pair two together to make 24 volts, and I bought a 100 amp lithium battery, and the latest thing is the 2000 watt inverter. So someone asked me to make a little movie about the inverter, which I've done, but also I really wanted to try out the battery and the solar panel to see if it was feasible to do cooking with it. The ultimate aim is to have one or two small electric motors on the back, but I'm only doing a little bit at a time, piece by piece, learning as I go along. So these are not instructional videos, these are just a little bit of a record of how I did and what happened to me as I went along. So first, a quick view of the 100 amp 24 volts lithium battery, and that fitted very nicely in the battery box which I had built, which could take either lithium or ordinary batteries. And next is the actual inverter, which is 2000 watts, made by Vevor, and came with a very nice remote control unit. Here we have one of the two solar panels, 100 watts, bought about 10 years ago for €250, and has worked quite well. Originally it was a crosswise on the roof, but it was in the shadow of the boom, so I moved it to this side. And then recently I bought another panel, which is now on the other side, which we can try and get round. And here we are. This is the other one, also 100 watts, both wired in series, and this one of course is in the shadow, so it's probably knocking out the other one a bit. Ideally, I would get 4 of these new panels on the roof. It would fit perfectly, but of course that's another €300, €100 each, plus another 100 for a solar controller, so it's not going to happen anytime shortly. So it's all a little bit experimental at the moment. I can see how much power I got coming in, how much power I'm using, and see what it all comes to. So down here in the engine compartment I have the remains of the Perkins 4108 engine, which had been rebuilt in Tarragona, and it never had an anti-siphon fitted to it. The local mechanic persuaded me to let him take it out, and when he put it back in, he put a new water filter high up in the back there, and he changed the route of a discharge pipe to lower down, and after a while water siphoned in and destroyed the engine. So the plan is maybe to fit 1 or 2 small outboards on the back of the boat, and for that purpose I'm looking at small electric motors, only 5 horsepower, so therefore I really want 2 of them, but 2 of them is a bit more than can be afforded, so I'm starting off with 1. So up here I have got the Victron 15 amp I think it is, solar controller. I put in a switch which hasn't got the cover on it yet, and I've wired it up to, I will show you in a moment, in the dark recesses there's the new lithium battery about to fall in. So let me get to the other end. I just opened up the opposite end of the engine compartment. There's the engine, big hefty gearbox, and down here on this side is a box which I built, which can take 3 batteries, and get the hand out of the way. And there in the corner is a 100 amp 24 volt brand new lithium battery, and there's a space for probably 1 more in the future, quite expensive, €700 each one. Above the battery, there's nowhere else I could put it. I can get down and point up there. Maybe I have to go inside. Oh, you can see it. Can you see it? There's the is it hanging upside down? I can't see. There is the 2000 watt inverter. These are little cables. Maybe they're a bit too thin, because when I tried boiling the kettle, it started beeping like mad. I'm thinking, what the hell's that noise, and switched it off quickly. So we'll have a go at starting it. So here I am back in the engine compartment for a second attempt, see if it shows any better, having screened off the bright sun. Down here, there in the corner, is the brand new 100 amp 24 volt lithium battery. And on this little platform, for the time being, is the inverter. It's the only place I could fit it. I would have liked to be able to see the end of it where the instrument display is. Unfortunately, if I put it the other way around, then those little cables won't be long enough to reach my terminals. Now in there somewhere, there's a switch. Here it is. If I can switch it on. There it is. And it lights up and tells you the status of it, which is quite good. In the beginning I didn't know which is off and on because it's got a 1 and a 0, and the 1 is supposed to be binary for on and the 0 is off. I figured it out eventually. So it's much handier to be up in the galley area and read that information on the remote control. And what else I've got down here? I've got over there the solar controller, 15 amp Victron, and I've got a space on the other side for another one if I eventually put more panels. There'll be 2 panels per controller. The switches, which I've got to have the covers put on, and then the cable is 2.5 millimeters square, which I calculated was enough, so I hope it's enough, and runs down and there it comes up there like that onto this modern kind of terminal thing. So that's the arrangement down here. Quite pleased with it, except that it hasn't really worked adequately because probably it needs 1 or 2 more batteries to make a proper battery bank. But we'll learn a bit about that as we go along. Up here is the controller, or the display, for the inverter, which is about to be fitted on there, and it comes through the cable. I put a little extension on it. It comes quite a long way. It comes through the little hole here, down to the back, behind a fridge. And I was going to put it up here, but I couldn't read the screen. I can only read it when it's at eye level, or higher than eye level, and I shall demonstrate that in just a moment. Okay, after using the small kettle, the battery voltage is 25.5. I'm going to switch it on. Where is it? Down here. And I'm going to switch it on at the back. Right, is this switch on the back? What happened to it? Oh, it's the wrong one. Sorry. Try again. This one. I'll switch on at the back down there. It's lit up. Right. Now you see it set the alarm off. I did. It set the alarm off and it stopped beeping. Can you figure out what that is? What category? I don't know. Switch off. I switched it off. Right, give that some more thought. I'm not really pleased about that because I expect it to work better than that. 1 battery, 100 amps. Maybe I'll change the wires leading from the battery to the inverter or something. Study it all a bit more, that's the answer. So here we are. I've got 2 kettles here. This is the normal one. It's 1200 watts, and I used that yesterday and it worked perfectly well the first time. On the second attempt later on I got the beep beep beeps, which frightened me to death, and then the third time worked okay. So today I've dug this little old kettle out. I think it's a British second-hand one from years back, got a British plug on the end, and I've just put some water in. So this one I figure about 600 watts. Well, if I can even boil water with this one regularly without problems, that would be not too bad. And up here we've got the display, so I'm going to try and switch it on now, see what happens. There you go, the light came on. What does it say? It says 25.8, so that's okay. And down here, the I like to have switch socket there. I got this on a separate one, so this one I can turn off where the other kettle was. I can turn this one on, And oh yes, I've got another switch on the thing itself. That's on. So let's see what happens. Looking at this, you see, 25.3, 24 volt 100 amp brand new lithium battery. It's a nice display. It's got 5 bars showing that the thing is charged up. And yes, I can hear the kettle, I can hear the sound. This is a Lucky Mermaid, and this is a water gauge. I have 2 tanks. I took out the old, I think it was a 50-gallon, it was a rusty diesel tank and a rusty water tank. I had them taken out, that's what ended up losing the engine. Anyway, it's another story. So that's quite a good improvement I put in. And now I'm going to see, keep an eye on the thing up there. A little kettle gets on. And the galley is all recently rebuilt. I put in this gas top. Unfortunately, it's a French one with a fixed outlet. That means you have to have nuts and bolts to connect to it, instead of the old days when you just put a hose pipe on it. And I put a big gas bottle in the corner. That didn't work out, so I took it away. So this is not connected at the moment. I'm using electric. I'm actually using this little electric cooker there. And that's about 1 kilowatt, 1000 watts. That works very well, except it's not terribly powerful. And for powerful, I've got down here, beneath the electric little oven, I've got down here somewhere a little camping gas stove. And I think that's 1600 watts. And that thing is absolutely marvellous, except the cartridges only last about 3 hours. So that's the arrangement at the moment. So I'm hoping that if I can get the solar power working, I will be able to use the kettle if nothing else, little one if nothing else, and do electric cooking for a while. I prefer the gas, but it's much safer on the boat to have electric. So I rebuilt the countertop. This one is marble, a piece of marble I found in the street. It's actually a giant kind of tile. It's extremely heavy, so I only put one, and the other part I made out of lightweight plywood and painted it marble colour. And this side is gimbaled so that it's locked in position. It would actually rock and roll when the boat rocks and rolls. Well, this little kettle, as you can say, is probably about 600 watts and an awful lot slower than the big one, that's for sure. But I'll maybe go back to the bigger one later on. How are we doing? We're not hammering the battery so much this time. It's at 24.9. So that's a lesson learned in itself. I can be patient. Maybe it's just getting to know the system a bit. And I'll go back to the other kettle later and see if the beeps go off. So I looked in the handbook, and it's got 3 different styles of beep. There's a beep, 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 and a beep, 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 and God knows what else, and that really pissed me off. Could be bother that nonsense. So I figured it was taking too much power out of the battery at one go or something, or probably you're supposed to have a battery bank with at least 4 batteries, I guess, even if they are 100 watts, 100 amps each one. Well, I'm going to switch this off now and come back when it boils. Quick check. 24.9. So there we are, this little thing's bubbling away. First time it's been running in about 10 years, if ever. And the battery is 24.9. It's just clicked off, the kettle switched off, so that's quite good. So now I'm going to try and have a go at the other one. Let me put the camera down and switch everything on. Now, if up here it had told me the watts being used, which it does on the inverter itself, I would have realised that the fridge was plugged into this circuit. So I've just switched it on to see if get the fridge going again. It's either that or I'll switch it back onto the mains, one or the other. Aha, you see, that is the light. That is the fridge. It's working off the inverter. It's also quiet. The fridge is quiet and the inverter is quiet. You can hardly tell it's on, but it is. So we had to come back into the engine compartment, or should I call it now the inverter compartment, and you can see that that's only the fridge is running. So the fridge is drawing 97 watts. Now, had that information been on the remote control, I would have known what's going on, instead of having to open up and come all the way down in here. But anyway, learn a little bit as we go along. Now here also is part of the answer. The kettle on the right, which I thought was 1.2 litres and about 1200 watts. When I turn to the back of the base, zoom in, what is it? It's 1500 watts to 1750 watts. So that's much more powerful than I thought it was, because usually on the boat I only buy stuff that's around about 1 kilowatt, because I run on shore power, and the shore power is not always very powerful, and depending on the cables in the boat I have 3 circuits. But the 3, I didn't wire it up, somebody else wired it up originally. The 3 circuits all come off one shore power cable, which I replaced with the biggest one I could get. But I don't like taking chances. Anyway, there we go, part of the answer, 1500 to 1750, plus the fridge is about 97 to 125 watts, so it's getting to 1800 something watts, 2 kilowatt max on the inverter. So maybe I'll get another kettle, which will be about 1200 watts or 1 kilowatt next time. Right. Now is next day, and I'm about to test this 1 kilowatt hot plate by cooking some dinner. And the fridge has been on all night, and the reading is 25.9, which is fully charged. So I'm just going to chop up this bit of meat and carrot and stuff, put it on the pot, and I'm going to give it 30 minutes. So now we're ready to try cooking a little bit of dinner, a little bit of pork cubes, carrots, potato, onion, garlic, on the 1 kilowatt hot plate. The rating at 25.9. I'm just about to switch it on. So switch on there, and then we'll turn this on. Doesn't usually make that noise, but it is on it. I want to give it 30 minutes and see if we can cook the dinner, monitoring the reading, and hope no alarm or anything goes off. 20 past 2. Right, if nothing else happens I'll check back in half an hour. Now it's taken 20 minutes to start simmering. I've just turned it down to 3.5, and the reading on the bottom of the cooker, it says 1000 watts, but the actual reading on the inverter said 1400 and something. It's closer to 1500 watts, so nothing else is connected to it. So that's a bit strange. A lot to learn, really. Meanwhile, back down on the inverter itself, the display shows 1472 watts. That's the amount of juice that the 1000 watt cooker plate is drawing out of the battery via this inverter. Now we're at the 30-minute point, so it's been going for half an hour. It's been doing quite well, I would say. And coming up to the meter, 24.5, it's just switched itself off. It's doing quite well. Now I'm giving it 10 minutes extra, and it's hovering on the 50% mark, which is what I had calculated it to be, so that's okay really. Now I'm just coming up to 3 o'clock, and the meter is coming down to 22.9. It is in fact, well, the sun just came out. I was going to say, it is in fact a bit cloudy today, so I'm not getting much input, and I could double it by moving the boom to one side. I switched off the electric hob, and this has gone back up to 5 bars, 24.9. So when it's showing quite low on the voltage reading, the battery probably is a bit better than it appears to be on the display, especially when the hot plate is switched on. I think it's because the inverter tends to pull quite a lot of power, and I only have one battery, whereas a battery bank, I'm sure it would be much more successful with even just say 2 batteries. Well, that's maybe sometime in the future. So I made a little chart based upon a chart I found on the internet, so I could interpret the actual voltages on the battery. But later on I discovered that chart was all wrong and I needed another chart, which was a lithium chart. So I had to cut out little bits of filming with the numbers, and I just put the chart on here so that might be useful to somebody else, stop them making the same mistake in the future. I just saw a YouTuber filmed by another guy who just bought a new lithium battery and was initially a bit disappointed by the performance until he found that the battery had only been delivered charged to 30%. So that's probably what happened to mine as well. It was actually the same brand. So that's another point to watch out for. As to the actual dinner, how it turned out, I thought I'd filmed that, but I've lost a bit of film, I don't know. Trying to do too many things at once, interpret the figures, making another video about the galley and stuff like that. That's my excuse for today anyway. So I shall just wind it up and say, overall, I think it was quite successful for the first attempt. 30 minutes was the planned time. It did that quite well. The system can be improved in the future. I shall just keep working at it and studying it. And of course, buying more bits and pieces, which seem to be never ending for the system of solar energy.